You know what's funny? So yesterday I made a video talking about Jeremy Biakabutuka and how he was impressing a lot at Red Wings camp. In that video I said that the Red Wings were going to play the Penguins and that the video that I was recording was being pre-recorded before the Penguins game. And so I was like, yeah, you know, it's going to be interesting to watch because the Red Wings are going to ice a bad lineup and they're probably not going to do all too well, and then they actually dominated and they stomped. So yeah. Anybody that was watching yesterday's Biakabutuka video and was like, yeah, wait a minute, what the hell's Lego talking about? They did great against Pittsburgh. Yeah, that's kind of my bad. It's the territory that YouTubing comes with when you pre-record videos a day before they get uploaded. But either way, today I wanted to talk about yet another player who has been impressing so much at Red Wings camp, Prospects camp, and over the past few years in Sweden. He is one half of Sweden's national basketball team. And yeah, I did see Dylan Larkin in the comments that he made about that, but today we're going over the giant himself, Elmer Soderblom, a guy whom I've been kind of hyping up the past few years, and if you've been a fan of this channel for the past few years, you have definitely seen us talk about him more than once, because when it comes to Elmer Soderblom, this is a guy that not only has been impressing a lot in Sweden, but he's impressed so much more over the past few days that all of a sudden the conversation about this guy and his play is in a much different territory than it was, let's say, a few weeks ago before all this stuff started. So, yesterday we had ourselves a game between the Red Wings and the Chicago Blackhawks. To be honest, I did not watch it. There were regional blackouts. I don't really have Detroit games available. I have to go out there and find them using other means. And I wanted to spend some time watching Montreal-Toronto, which wasn't a good use of my time either because Montreal kind of sucked. But either way, we had ourselves a Red Wings game that, based off the reception I've been seeing on social media, wasn't really all too great for the Red Wings. I mean, you want to talk about the Red Wings, they weren't really all too great, but for the guy we're talking about, Elmer Soderblom, he was pretty good. In fact, you want to go over the players of the game, this is what the Wing-Wheeled Pod went out there and said. The player of the game for the Red Wings was indeed that Elmer Soderblom. Nice. And the player of the game for the Blackhawks was, it was Arvid Soderblom. Yeah, they're related. And Arvid Soderblom, you take a look at what he is for the Chicago Blackhawks. He's a goalie. And he also happens to be a pretty big dude. He's 6'3", not the 6'8", like Elmer Soderblom is, but he's still pretty big. And he did a pretty good job shutting down a lot of the Red Wings and their offense, and it was a good Chicago victory because of Soderblom. Despite that, though, I wanted to focus on Elmer and everything that we had seen up to this point. Of course, we know the profile. He was a 6th-round draft pick. He was taken 159th overall back in 2019. Maybe you don't know that off the top of your head. I know I didn't. I had to look it up because, yeah, that's very far into the 6th round. But either way, Soderblom was always just a weird project. He was big, and that was probably the most attractive part about him, was that you're not going to get anybody else that's 6'8" and actually has some pretty good value elsewhere around the game of hockey. Soderblom became a pretty good player for the J20 Super Elite in Sweden, over a point per game over there. He eventually transitioned to the regular SHL for Frölunda, where he had a 33-point and 52-game season last year as a junior player. Now, as a 21-year-old, he is supposed to be heading over to the Grand Rapids Griffin system, although, as we have noted, throughout prospect camp and throughout training camp, as well as throughout the preseason, he's been showing off in more ways than one that he might actually be good enough to play at the NHL level. Kicking things off in the Prospects tournament, we saw ourselves some really good shifts, where Soderblom was using his big frame effectively, walking around the perimeter, finding his way around guys, and making sure that they can't take the puck from him. He's really good at evading pressure when he needs to. And he has the skills of a 6'1" regular two-way forward, wherein he's able to dangle by guys, make a few interesting plays. He can go through the legs with his shooting ability. He did that several times for Team Sweden at the World Juniors, I believe. And you had yourselves the off-puck play too, where Elmer Soderblom was frequently finding himself in scoring positions, receiving one-time passes cross-crease and burying in the biscuit. That goal specifically, he scored that 2 days ago against the Pittsburgh Penguins, or was it 3 days ago? It's whatever. Berggren to Soderblom, very nice pairing right there. But yeah, even going back to just the Prospects tournament, it was a very good treat watching this dude, who had already played 2 seasons worth of pro hockey in Sweden, suiting up against other 18, 19, 20-year-old prospects and just absolutely outclassing them everywhere. This is what Dylan Larkin said about Elmer Soderblom and Simon Edvinsson, the Swedish basketball team. That's what he dubbed it. They look good. They've played pro hockey, they pay attention to details, and they're assertive. They're calm with the puck, they have poise, they know how to handle physicality. I'm sure throughout the Prospects tournament they got familiar with the smaller ice. Here are some comments the other day from Derek Lalonde on Soderblom and his play. He skated and he competed against the Penguins. There's still some areas in a young guy. Puck protect, 2 hands on the stick, little details for a young player. But it was certainly a positive. I think he reflected most of our guys last night. He's at a very high compete level. He also said that he had talked with Soderblom about being open-minded and starting from scratch. My first look with Elmer, Lalonde says, was the first game in Traverse City and his big body and soft hands around the net, especially on the power play. He got his stick on a couple of pucks, went through his legs on a deflection, just high-level skill stuff that is very interesting from a big guy like him. Going back to what Larkin said, it's your first time in this building putting the jersey in front of your fans against another NHL team. It's an exciting moment. I think it's close to your first actual NHL game, but I'm excited to see what a lot of these guys can do and how they handle the everyday grind of the preseason. Nowadays, everyone skates so well and handles the puck well. The little things, the intricacies of the game, and how they're coached and how they make line changes and what they do with the puck. Things like that you have to mature into. And these two guys, Edvinsson and Soderblom, have both done that in their careers. Now, yesterday, we did note that the Blackhawks ended up beating out the Red Wings, and both Soderbloms looked pretty good. Elmer was probably the best player out there, just from the perspectives of people that I had seen that had watched the game. Regarding that Chicago game, though, Derek Lalonde did say there was a request from management to see Elmer Soderblom in a top 6 role, and he got that along with power play time as well. This guy is actually pretty good. And I think this tweet from the professor pretty much sums up what allows him to do so well in the selection he has had so far. I'm usually the pump the brakes kind of guy, but if Elmer Soderblom doesn't get stopped a single time in the preseason, how is he not going to make the team? There's probably a quality scoring chance on 80% of his shifts. It's ridiculous. And then, of course, you have yourselves the fact that Soderblom played with Adam Ernie, who had 2 goals in the game yesterday, and the first one was actually assisted by Soderblom and Edvinsson, so there you go, Swedish basketball team getting to work here. And I think I speak for everybody when I say that we always kind of knew that Edvinsson had a pretty good chance at making the team. All he had to do was just not screw up and be okay. And then he would be given that replacement time for Danny DeKeyser or Mark Stahl or whoever, because there were spots available for left-handed defensemen, especially that of the caliber of talent that Edvinsson has. But for Soderblom, I'm starting to think that there's a lot more than meets the eye here with this guy right off the bat, too. Now, I don't want to make it seem like he'll be a Calder contender like Seider and Raymond last year, but just the fact that he has been competent enough to justify keeping him in the top 6 and giving him power play time, that in and of itself is impressive, and if he ends up playing 6, 7, 8 games of the sample that he has before the NHL ELC is not able to slide down anymore, then maybe it actually would work out if the Red Wings decided to play him somewhere in the middle 6, give him an extended role, and just tell him, hey, you're good enough to play for our team, and you're probably a better option than some of the other guys we have that are a little bit more expensive and a little bit more experienced, but a little bit worse. So, I don't know, talk in the comments your thoughts about Elmer Soderblom and everything that we have seen out of him so far. I still do think that it's really difficult to project a ceiling because he's a 6th-round pick, for crying out loud. 6th-round picks are never supposed to be this good this quickly, especially with the weird trait that he has of being 6'8". Not that it makes him weird, it's just peculiar. There you go, that's a better way to put it. The peculiar trait of being an absolute giant that's only accessible by climbing up a beanstalk into the clouds. Elmer Soderblom is that giant, and he just happens to be a very good hockey player for the Red Wings. And yeah, his brother appears to be pretty good for Chicago as well. So, talk in the comments your thoughts about Elmer Soderblom, everything that we had seen so far, and what you thought about his performances at the Traverse City tournament, the game against Pittsburgh, the game yesterday against Chicago. What are your thoughts on how he has developed, and how does he look so far comparative to other NHL caliber talents? Do you think he's ready to make the show? I definitely wouldn't disagree, but if you wanted to say give him some time to dominate the AHL, I would not necessarily disagree with that either. So, I guess it's up to Stevie Y now to make or break a decision that's going to pretty much unite the fan base, because everything the guy does, everybody loves, which I'm not going to blame anybody for, it's just how it is. But talk to me either way your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this Juraj Rolls 99, and bye.